Out of the Old Testament can't be good because he commanded genocide. Counterpoint, is it just for God to allow evil to prosper? Israel was acting out God's judgment by his command. One day we will all stand in judgment before God. We should not be surprised when judgment is also carried out on earth, especially when that judgment puts a stop to something that was horribly destructive. Look into what some of these people were doing before you cast judgment. I know this is hard for people who grow up thinking that not using plastic straws is going to somehow save the planet, but God actually fights for his people, and there are actually things that are worth fighting for, like the people that you love. Oh, but didn't he love those other people that he made? The people who rejected him and wanted nothing to do with him and persisted in their wicked ways that were totally contrary to the law and order that he was establishing? It's not to be callous towards them, but I've never had a problem with this argument because the reality of the world is that violence is sometimes necessary. You do see stories of King David going to war against the enemies of God, correct? Hear what I'm not saying. I'm not encouraging anything. I'm just pointing out the fact that there is a season for everything. Understand that this revelation of the fact that God is warlike and is capable of enacting judgment and is powerful paves the way for the humility that he shows in the person of Jesus Christ. This is actually a huge problem in the modern church. A lot of people confuse the Old Covenant with the Old Testament, and they say, oh, well, since the Old Covenant's not in effect, I don't need to read the Old Testament. I can just read the New Testament and read about Jesus and love and peace and all that good stuff. But Jesus says in John 5 that the Old Testament is about him. So to understand the humility and the mercy and the grace that he extends, the forgiveness, to understand the power of what happens on the cross, you have to understand that before all of that happened, he is also the lawgiver. He is also the one who, when necessary, puts his enemies to death. He is the powerful one who also chose to hang on the tree, who also chose to wash the feet of his disciples and brush elbows with the lepers and the afflicted and the sinners and the tax collectors, the prostitutes, the drunkards, all those, to reach those people who had disobeyed him and who he is going to pass judgment on if they don't repent. But his heart is not to destroy them, it's to seek after them. If you don't have the Old Testament in the context of the New Testament, it doesn't make sense. The sacrifice does not make any sense. Before he demonstrates that meekness, he demonstrates strength. That way it's clear that this is a choice. This is not because he's weak and he has no recourse. It's because he prefers reconciliation and is willing to go to the low places to get that. He's willing to make that first move and to pursue us. So let's not start to think that Jesus is a weak character. That would be a rather unfortunate error to make. God bless.